Recording now. So welcome. And today's guest is Marlon.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I'm interested in like asking people or like to know how people create the creation process. So I asked a few others this question like how how's your process like can be creation, production, research, anything, but
Yeah.
like how does it start and how does it end?
Huh?
That's what I'm really curious
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, I probably can use a reference to a concept of Gregory Bateson. You know, Gregory Bateson is this cybernetician who has been a lot of influence in my life and work. I had a teacher who studied with Gregory Bateson. So, and I studied cognitive science while I was at the same time dancing. So then that Gregory Bateson mainly coined this, besides being extremely influential in a lot of artists, and as this model of kind of systems applied to arts. So he had in the books towards an ecology of mind, steps to an ecology of mind. He has this format that he starts every chapter with a conversation with his daughter, and the dialogues are these dialogues that are talking about communication, right? So practically they start discerning through this kind of beginning of chapters, kind of some kind of stories on communication. That is kind of the fundamental aspects of systems. So then, in a way, that is what is called a metalogical structure. So then that the content reflects the structure and the structure reflects the content. So that means that the dialogue is a communication and at the same time is about communication. So,
Right. Interesting.
yeah. So in a way, then I think that my work or how I have learned to work, and I said creating or anything that I can output has some kind of quality that it has recursion in itself and it's very, and I go like this, it's very circular, and of course this is a metaphor for process. So then um, I think it's process, and then there are moments that there are outputs that I recognize that are kind of okay. Let's show this, but I'm actually sometimes put myself in mainly in the last 2 years that I've been working most with AI and working in a very liminal space of interdisciplinarity that sometimes a performance, sometimes it's an installation, sometimes a web page, sometimes it's a video, or sometimes it's just a text. Mostly because generative AI is allowing me to navigate really nicely this kind of multimodality. So then I kind of like, oh, that would be nice to put it on Instagram, right? So, but that it is never a rigid final product. So I have kind of eliminated the idea, the illusion of finality in some kind of product, because it's an illusion. So then I kind of said, well, then I kind of made this, for example, the main example I think that is how I try to leave traces of my work for myself. That then I'm using GitHub, for example, and then I use coding, creative coding, and then I take notes within GitHub as well, and then I'm using AI in all the levels of the process, from what I write, from how I create the work. Sometimes, what is the work about? Is about intelligence or artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of recursion in it, kind of internal loops. So then that is a movement in the work that is, or my research, that is actually its own cognitive system. I feel like my work in itself is a cognitive system with me, and hopefully with people who can kind of watch it and or experience it. So then I have this lecture performance that it has become almost like an essay, and all notated in on GitHub. and in a website and a web page published in GitHub, and it has repo, the repository, and it goes to the kind of the live app. So that and they are open source.
So you don't need to download, but you can just go there,
and click, and then if you like it and you want to use the code, you use it. So then that is how that is outputted. But I myself, I loop inside that process. You know, I move them around. There are like probably 20 vignettes or nodes. So network, right? So the notion of network. So then I feel that besides the circularity is a metaphor, and of course the network is another model of the interconnected aspect of all whatever cognitive nodes or semantic nodes that can create. So then that's how I love to. So then that work has a form. You know, it's a document in Markdown language, and then it has these links, and I put the pictures, etc. And then I visit that every day. So because then I feel that I'm all the time exploring what my own work affords. You know, the work is not separate from the process that is making it, and the making it is how I'm doing right now, trying to tell you a story that is a little bit circular. So, and that has become some kind of performative style as well. And then I try to. It's just like that. It's just kind of it loops in itself. And then, for example, I made a piece or a node of vignette that is an artificial light creature, meaning it's this coded creature that is like a snake that's going, and it's called pseudo-Ouroboros, because I feel like my work is a little bit like the Ouroboros, is kind of chasing its own tail, but it's pseudo because sometimes it's in the environment, going like this and trying to find food or eating its own poop, you know? So it leaps poop, and it eats it, and then makes noises, but sometimes it goes like this, and it goes, whoa! You know, it kind of creates this self-interest thing. So then that has become a little bit of a metaphor of existing in a way, you know. There is this self-reflexive aspect, but I ate, I went to the bathroom, I did things, and I talked to you.
Yeah, thank you. Like, actually, I think you covered everything that I wanted to ask.
There's Marlon. There's Marlon. As my daughter says, like, there's the vortex.
First, I actually wanted to ask you about like how body comes in, but maybe I can actually extend a bit, like, because we talk about, you know, like many bodies, you know, as a collective or with others, and you seem to have like really nice way of like organizing things with GitHub, but how does it work with like collaboration, or like do you refer to other people? Like, how does that work for you?
Interesting. For example, I always feel like I am in a process of sharing. But I also like to have some degree of a lot of autonomy in doing my thing. You know, whatever that is. So I think that's what I'm probably so hands-on, and I like to know how to do it. And now with the AI, it's like, I can do this by myself with this thing that is not a person. So in a way, and I think that tells about, you know, it's my own history. I'm an only child, and there are a lot of things that I feel that come there. I feel like I don't fetishize collaboration. I think that I try to have a lot of autonomy. I really feel like, I don't know, you know, that's what I was telling you the other day. I feel a little bit apprehensive at some collaborations because probably it's my own fear about it in general.
But maybe like it's not only like explicitly like working with others, but you share with others.
Oh yeah,
and that's
I just feel like
kind of collaboration.
Well, in a way, is there. Is, you know, everything is open source. If you want, please make some attribution. If you make some money, try to give me something. I don't think they're gonna sue you because money. And so, but that person, that in a way, everything that I do, I feel like my urgency is some kind of epistemic necessity. I think that I feel like there is an epistemic urgency of trying to understand how we know. That's what I really love this moment of my work, that artificial intelligence has allowed me to go back to fundamental questions about what is a mind, what is cognition, what is a body, what is creation, what is intelligence, and then to question a lot of many unexamined assumptions and a lot of epistemic mess that sometimes we are, or even culturally, we are in a lot of trouble, epistemically. What is truth, for example? What is a fact? So what does storytelling have to do with actuality of facts? And of course, there are many philosophers that have played with this. But I love the idea that I can do a work and makes you think about, what is this real? What is the body? And then and questions that also, when you bring the body, it brings the catastrophe. It brings uh, skin color. It brings gender. It brings all the cultural causes and conditions that have surrounded that have created a lot of oppression and suffering. So then, that is I feel like I feel a lot of energy right now. I never think that my work is activist or anything like that, but because it's epistemic.
Okay. Yeah.
It's epistemic. It's the kind of action that we need now. It's like we need a lot of epistemic cleansing, some kind of engine of thought that allows us to think even what is a thought.
Right.
It's like, why that. So I don't make many distinctions between philosophy and practice. For me, all this lives in language, and lives in. I always feel like we live between the two metas. Metaphor, the metaphor and metabolism. So then they are like this. Imbricated, entangled, coupling, like two snakes. And then with these other snakes, that have the same. So then, and we inhabit a fully vibrant material world. Like, there's a lot of new materialisms, but I don't. I think that there is the beauty of understanding these things that I do with some kind of post-humanist framework. That's how I can hold the wondrousness of living in metaphor and language, not separate from embodiment. Actually, it's not. So the abstraction is a full embodied process, and language is a physical process. So then, and then it's not the text inhabits some kind of weird realm. Literally, it's a bunch of patterns that couple with vibrant matters of other brains and nervous systems.
Right.
And then, as I'm talking here, and hopefully there, mediated by recordings, is actually vibrating in relationship to the neuronal connections that I'm invoking, and they're neural connections.
Yeah.
To be able to hear me and to understand. And a phasic person probably would not able to put all this together. So then, and that's embodied materiality, and then it's distributed, is enmeshed, is collective. Then I use a lot of reference to embodied cognition, from enactivism. I'm really kind of a part of the lineage of Francisco Varela and Humberto Maturana that practically gave, since like probably 30 years or me, of a little bit more of a framework to understand embodiment from a full material evolutionary perspective that includes culture. It's never separate from culture.
Right.
Culture and as history. And so that's kind of, and then I feel like everything is kind of moving around that. And then, how I said this morning, everything, I try to refer everything as the notion of. the notion of. And that's probably me trying to be respectful of epistemologies and respectful of the primacy of metaphor as a part of constructivism, social construction of everything, and at the same time being this weird thing that is material, and my body is growing, my hair is growing, and my cells are dying, and I'm dissipating, as we speak. I'm dying. So then dying is living and living is dying as a dissipative structure metabolizing energy. Yeah. So how to put that together is beautiful for me. And then now that we have these entities that are kind of like quoting Donna Haraway, quoting, they're like oatkins, this, like we have perhaps an octopus or bacterias or the symbionts that Lynn Margulis talked about. So then there is this amazing things with a lot of problems like us, but that actually are, we can establish some, we feel the kinship. There's something that is there when we mostly when I have worked with LLMs, and they're getting better and better in be very like our kin. But that doesn't mean that are the same. It doesn't mean that it's an interesting exploration to think can be a mind that is not in a biological substrate. So I think that I really feel that that's fascinating for me. That there is an article that is called "In the Space of Possible Minds" from I think from the 80s, and so I'm being very influenced by that. It's like we're now in this space. And this was from the 80s, and it was like mostly when people were starting to work with neural networks. So, and then I think that we are hopefully in the recognizing the different kind of more a posthumanist way of relating with other species, organic carbon-based species, but also now we have this other substrate of possible intelligence, so intelligences.
Yeah, I just going back a little bit, but you said you what you do is not activism, and I guess it's also like because you're not imposing any kind of value.
I never think that way. That
it's more like you're offering kind of way of thinking.
Yeah, but lately I've been more like I feel so angry in some of the ways. I can feel that, or I can feel also my own age in relationship to many of the wounds of oppression, and getting a little bit wiser about it. But what I feel right now, I believe in the power of art, but not as art over there. I hope that everybody would do some kind of contemporary art practices. I'm not talking about painting. I'm not talking about just painting or do some craft. No. Embrace conceptuality. Deconstruct the object. What the hell is an object? What is an event? So then, you know what I mean? The contemporary art field is the only field that I feel that I can fully be the whatever I want, and I can think however I want, and I can not make amputations in the knowledge, in what is known, because there's so many dogmas in the disciplines, or the fields of work. So then this is not a career for me. This is first of all, careers are fictions, but this is whatever path that it is. It's a creation of our labor structures. But I think that what I love to do is this cognitive engagement and with these practices of knowing that, and I am very lucky that I can go through many different probably mediums, and but the cool thing is that now AI as a medium is cognitive in itself, and that's what I really feel that is super cool. That now it's not that okay, I'm gonna I can create a video. Code is computational. I can create something that looks like dancing, or there's this little scan algorithm. I know what's going to happen. But then this thing, if I use it as a medium, whatever we understand medium was, is changing beyond the computational in relationship to cognitive processes, meaning reasoning, metacognition, trying to have certain kind of self-referential, multidirectional kinds of nonlinear processes. And that's going to be possible really, really soon, I think. So then that's what I kind of fascinated by it. And I don't think this is a utopia. It's more about, oh, wow, let's say there is an authoring field. I can create something. Well, I can create something that really, probably instead of thinking of a book, I can write a model, and that model will narrate itself, right? So then there is the possibility of creating open-ended systems or I don't know, giving continuity to some kind of knowledges. Anyway, and I think that that's really important for me right now. It's like, how can we avoid, do what it's called radio and TV, right? So how can I just investigate what are the specific affordances of these kinds of entities? And then perhaps it will be some very specific kinds of work that would exist only in that realm, meaning only as AIs. So that's also has been something that I really like to think about. Can this work only exist in this medium? For example, I feel that that's what always, when I was doing more interactive performance, I was like, if I could do this with a film, I would not be doing it because why would we be doing that in computers? So then, of course, with better resolution, pixels, and all that, right? But there is something, of course, about the computational mediums that has a lot of fluidity. But now, besides the fluidity and resolutions, you have this cognition thing in relationship with language mainly.
But how do you, maybe the last question,
Yeah.
how do you work with AI is like, well, it is biased. It has its own value, and it's. Some people told me that it's very patriarchal. The way you work with AI. How do you deal with these problems?
Well, but it's not a problem that we are out of. We are inside the problem. So practically, the problem is the whole system. It's not the AIs, and
it's just a mirror.
It's reflecting. It's actually a distillation. It's like. But also it's like if you are using a Mac or a PC, or if every art that we are doing has the bias of Eurocentric taste and whatever that is, in relationship to taste, in relationship to bias. Taste is bias. Having a taste is a bias. So I did in the piece that I literally feel like the way that I fall in love is bias. Because I mainly have fell in love with white men, blah blah blah. So I live between prejudice and bias and love, my taste. So then I think that I only can say that if I put myself in a position that I am in the trouble. It's like with Donna Haraway, stay with the trouble.
Yeah.
It's not over there, it's over there, it's like here. So then I think that that's how I try to approach it. For example, I am doing this project that is called Pangea AI, like the idea of this unified continent that used to exist.
Yeah.
And then the idea with a partner in this project, Maria Luisa Angulo, she's from Salvador but lives in Paris. So we are she's the expert in the colonial tactics, and I'm more the performer doing my thing. But it's amazing because she always reminds me of, okay, there it is. Like, look at all these white people that is showing off when you're doing. For example, I have this piece that I invoke this Bauhaus images in real time, and then mostly this Bauhaus people is white, and And I like that because I'm not. Obviously, but what I do is like put myself blue eyes.
Yeah.
And then I do the whole performance with this glowing blue eyes. And then I put the blue eyes of Mr. Parker, who was the boss of my grandmother when I was 9. I had my first crush on him. So I tell the stories about how I'm implicated. And I'm implicated in that. So then with AI, it's a tool that allows me to reverse a little bit that and create an imaginary that is fast and is strange and that is real time, and I like that. It's a little bit unexpected because suddenly there are like these other weird people that shows up there. And then with Malu, we did a piece that is called What If Europe Never Existed? In which we had the same app that I had for the Bauhaus, that it has a prompt. We changed the prompt and literally asked the AI, create people as if Europe never existed. So then when we were there, we were seeing this freaking AI concluded that everybody would be indigenous-like. And then constructed this speculative past or whatever history that in which there were all these people who were indigenous looking and black and spectacular outfits, by the way. so then that was fascinating because I call it, if there's bias, there's counter bias. You do it in writing. We try to do it in any kind of practice if we are aware of what's going on. Even how we cook, We know that a Venezuelan arepa is not a pita bread from Venezuela, but that's how people will do the narrative.
Right.
So
it's not even like Colombian arepa.
Exactly, no, because arepas are from Venezuela. So that's the eternal war. So then, anyway, so that's kind of how I put that there. There's so much work to be done, not only with AI. For example, I love to use. In certain way, the tools of the master, I will have been using that. Perhaps the Lord. Perhaps for me to, it's almost like, fuck it, we're gonna use it. I'm staying, sitting here, I'm not moving. So I love to always be in this edge positions, recognizing how difficult it is, and but also. Now at this age, with more sense of humor probably, and then without downplaying the complexity, because it's not simple. This whole whatever we are embedded, if we want to more or less have an understanding, is not a slogan. It's not going to be a short elaboration. So. And the silence is not the best tool for that as well. So, yeah, so you know what I mean? So then that is for me very important to actually infuse it with what is happening right now that I feel that is hilariously tragic in many ways. A lot of the stuff that we see. And it's not tragic also when people getting hurt and there's a lot of suffering. It's not funny, right? But then definitely, dogmas are funny. People think that the Bible was written in English. Excuse me, but So then there are a lot of things that I found hilariously ignorant, and then I'm sorry. I don't respect that. And I don't respect knowledge that violate the complexity that how we live, knowing that there are so many cultures and so many different ways of doing, and that's I'm trying to get very kind of a little bit more equanimous about it, but I would love sometimes to have people say there are mandatory readings. There would be like a lot of things that people should do. You understand? In a way, I'm a little bit like a top-down autocrat. It's like, no, you need to see this. And with the hope that will make some epistemic change or some kind of epistemic opening. And I totally use that word a lot because it's a word that even when I was in an environment in a very white environment, people were surprised that I would use that word. Oh, the professor, and I feel like, yeah, that's an indicator, of course, that first the racism in relationship to intelligence, and then or whatever is perceived as complex, only can be argumented from a white perspective, literally for a white person, by a white person, male. So I feel like for me the main problem is epistemic. Hopefully, and that's a way where art intervenes, and also where we hopefully find a context, meaning as species, as people who think about stuff, to actually tolerate complexity.
Right. And for that, like you said, top down, but we need tools to start.
Well, thank God. But imagine, like, art created something that's called relational aesthetics. What? It's not like something that I went to. I think it was the Whitechapel Gallery like 10 years ago or more. There was an exhibition of invisible art. Can you believe that? That there was something that was not there. It was the whole gallery looked like almost empty, with non-objects, and and that's what I think was I trying to invoke here in the choreographic lab as well. It's like Forsyth did the opposite. The ephemeral aspect of dance, he said, but there are objects. There are this thing that are called objects. So then there are these epistemic maneuvers that we seem to need to understand the complexity of a lot of practices, because we tend to create objects, right? And we love the material thing. So then the tension between the object and the signifier, or its signification, or the metaphor, I don't know, that's where we live. And I think that is something that I'm interested in, kind of, not to collapse them, but to problematize the split, and then to say, it's a very nice, interesting phenomenon. This is interesting.
Yeah, it's generative.
Well, yeah, because it exists in time.
Yeah,
we exist in that thing that we call time, and then I don't even know what's going to happen with this conversation. So then it's traces that we live, that we leave, like leaving them, and then like my cells that are falling apart, falling. So then I feel like there is something generative, but what would be the opposite of generative? By the fact of existing is dissipating. Do you know what I mean? Something by the fact of making these noises and conversing with you and being recorded and living this material realm, existing or interpenetrating molecularly here, there are things that will happen, but I don't know, because we actually don't know anything about how this is going to unfold, So then generativity is a really important concept that I like, that you maintain the generative. It's not about producing, but actually engaging in the act of existing as a knowing entity, and knowing that we exist as an entity. So then, and not only us, there are so many, and visible and invisible. Yeah? So in that sense, generativity is this reorganizations of patterns that goes back to the first question, right? So whatever we call creativity at this time is literally, I would say, connecting dots, live in this in-betweens, and at the same time suddenly there will be an object or something that I can instantiate in a loop of a video, and and I just more and more I'm creating less objects. So I think that there is, meaning whatever I reorganize, because I feel like more than creating, I cannot reorganize things.
Or maybe like less producing, but
Yeah, it's just like, for example, I consciously stopped making objects. Objects like physical, and then sometimes like, it would be fun, like to have the thing and the piece, and sculpture and 3D printing. But it's overwhelming. I get a little bit overwhelmed
yeah.
by. I don't want to carry more stuff really.
No, I totally feel the same. I produce prints sometimes.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. And that's,
flat.
of course, this is a strange political thing sometimes, but it sometimes come from the very clear aspects of we get too busy and we get really. I remember walking around with 3 suitcases and be underpaid and then my back was hurting. And now I'm older, so it hurts more. So I feel like, well, and I don't know if I have the money to pay people to carry those suitcases. And anyway, or pay those, transportations. So, and at the end, for example, I'm taking advantage of this interview. Thank you for doing it, of thinking out loud. Why do I keep doing this? I don't know. I think that.
Well, now we have a snapshot.
Yeah, I think it's a moment of what else can I do? I would be so bored if I would do something else. Meaning I'll probably, if I'm forced, I can work in Starbucks or something like that. The conditions can change because I've done that. I've been working as an artist. I've been working, even selling carpets in Afghani carpets in New York or whatever. And when I was a dancer, and I just feel like I'm so grateful to be able to engage playfully and radically and queerly with existing, because existing is queer in itself. In itself, and it's nothing to do with gender, and even if it's so cool and being queer. By the way, nothing against that, but I think that will make a lot of people happy.
Yeah,
I totally believe that.
It's a contingency also, like, because my theory is that some people are straight, but they're just like dismissing what is queer about them.
Yeah, well, like, and queerness as a way of being in the world is probably more relaxed with the fallacies of success and failure, and the whatever is this thing is a correct thing. I hope I think that it will be. We will be like in an open relationship with life,
Open relationship with life. I'll note
like,
that.
Okay, that's okay. I go this way, and then it was like, there is love there. Okay, I go there.
Sometimes you need distance.
And then you need distance, and you or need your contract very clear, right? So I was like, okay, this is the space. This is that. This is what we spoke about, and hopefully will be less drama about it.
Right.
So
that's amazing.
That's what I kind of like. Okay, and that's what is allowing me right now to probably inhabit a space that I'm really happy as a creator, artist, whatever. That I can play with signification and mess around and sometimes will feel very insecure about, oh my God, I'm not producing the big exhibition, and but know that it's gonna pass. It's just something that I keep doing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have a conversation.
That was fun.
With you. And
and this
stay tuned for the next interview. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but thank you for watching.
We will be here.